here with me now is Dr. Mario Ramirez. He's the former acting director for the Office of Pandemic and Emerging Threats, who helped lead the Obama administration's response to the Ebola crisis. He's now speaking out for the first time about the Trump administration's handling of the coronavirus. And Doctor, what do you see as you watch this play out, this sort of desire to not have responsibility or leadership except when they want it, this kind of weird back and forth we've seen from the White House and the degree to which they're coordinating or playing backup in the response?
Well, thank you for having me, Chris. I'm glad to join you this evening. I think you're right, and I think the governor spoke about that very eloquently. I mean, when I was part of the Obama administration and lived through the Ebola response, one of the things that was so striking about that was just the importance that the leaders placed on validated data. At that time, sort of even during the initial chaos, there was an emphasis on finding out who had the virus, how could we confirm that they were positive, and where were they going. With this virus, we don't have that same sort of reliability in the data, and we have lagged weeks to months behind where we really need to be. And the concern is that some of the leadership is trying to use inaccurate data to drive those decisions.
It strikes me today, the president announcing this, a third task force to reopen the economy. That's his daughter and his son-in-law and some people that said it was contained when, we had a few cases and now we have 600,000 or whatever it is. That they still think the reopening the economy is distinct from the public health questions, as opposed to entirely dependent upon the public health resolution.
Well, it's a hard question, and I, anecdotally, as someone who is not living in D.C., not living in New York or one of the major sort of large cities affected, but living here in the South, I very much understand the economic pain that people are going through, and this question about when you can reopen the economy in the light of this public health threat. But I think that most people would agree that we should really only open the government and the economy when people can agree that it's safe to do so. And one of the things, anecdotally, I'll tell you as somebody who is seeing patients on a daily basis right now with coronavirus, is that our testing does not give us a good sense of who is actually infected. We're seeing multiple patients with several negative tests before they actually turn positive. And what this administration has said is that we're going to use good testing information and contact tracing to try to sort of track who's infected and then get people back to work safely if we can separate those two groups. But my concern is that we have not been able to separate those two groups, and it makes it very difficult to safely open the economy in that sort of situation.
So you're now the third or fourth doctor who has said almost exactly the same thing to me in the past week about negative tests preceding positive tests. Is that an issue of testing quality and false negatives, or is that an issue of how the virus itself is moving through the patient?
It's a good question, Chris, and I think the truth is that we don't know. There is still a lot that we don't know about this virus. Now, I will tell you that statistically, this test, in some ways is similar to influenza testing, which historically only has a 50 to 70% test accuracy. And so it's important, I think, to sort of interpret these results to that. But there's no question that we are getting false negatives from difficulty with sampling. And then we also just don't know at what point people are actually experiencing viral shedding that we can actually pick this up.
A final question for you, just in terms of you dealing with patients and talking a little bit about the human toll of this, because I know you have practiced emergency medicine, if I'm not mistaken. To people that are still these many months in are saying, well, the flu this and the flu that. What do you say to them?
Well, I think the biggest contrast, right, is that we don't shut down the economy on an annual basis for the flu. And so I think heading to the top of your segment, you talked about 60,000 people who die on an annual influenza year. That is true, but we don't shut down the economy for that. And so, yes, it is true that we have driven down the fatality numbers for now, but we have made an incredible trade-off to get there. And as somebody who is seeing these patients out there and not having a good sense for how much of this is out there circulating, I think it's irresponsible for us to say that this is going to stop at 60,000. If we reopen too soon, there's no question in my mind that this will go back up quite quickly.
All right, Dr. Mario Ramirez, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.